Hey everyone, my name is Basilio Mendoza Wachon. I use he, they pronouns, and I am one of your SIPA interns.
Hey fellows, I'm Tyler James Domingo, pronouns he, him, his, and I'm one of your SIPA interns.
Magandang araw mga kababayan. My name is Janina, pronouns she, hers, and I'm one of the Community and Political Affairs Chair for this year.
Hey y'all, I'm Camelia. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm also one of the SIPA chairs this year.
Hello everyone, my name's Natasha. My pronouns are she or hers, and I'm this year's historian.
Community and Political Affairs is proud to announce a new podcast called Kwentuhan Korner. If you're a fan of our Filipino Friday infographic series on social media, this is FKF's sister in a podcast format. Filipino Fridays were created to keep you in the know about socio-political issues in the Philippines and around the world.
Kwentuhan Korner aims to do the same thing by implementing a more interactive way to learn about experiences and issues in the Filipino community. We will be having a specific theme for each episode and different segments discussing a variety of topics within that theme. This week's theme is home, whether that's your literal home, the chosen family who make up home, how home makes you feel, what home means to you, or anything else that you think encompasses home. The theme is up to your interpretation.
This is a trigger warning as the following current events segment will discuss topics on murder.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our current events section of the podcast, the SIPA Network, CPAN. Just as a disclaimer, we are not professional newscasters. However, we do try our best in our research for these current events. So please bear with us. Current event. I will be talking about Maria Ressa. Maria Ressa, the first Filipino Nobel laureate and the world-renowned journalist, has had the 4 tax evasion charges dropped against her and her news company Rappler. These tax charges were filed in 2018 by then-President Duterte's administration.
These cases are where capital markets, where rule of law, where press freedom meet, right? So this acquittal, kahit na medyo matagal po, is not just for Rappler. It is for every Filipino who has ever been unjustly accused. Oh, gosh.
Ressa rose to prominence after her reporting on the deadly war on drugs, police corruption, extrajudicial killings, and the human rights violations. She also examined the role of social media and the spread of disinformation in Duterte's initial campaign. In response to Ressa's coverage of the war on drugs, Duterte's administration retaliated in a series of both civil and criminal charges against Ressa in an attempt to silence her. The Human Rights Watch called the charges against her bogus and politically motivated. Ressa and her company still face 3 more charges, including cyber libel, another tax charge filed in another court, and an appeal to a closure order by the Securities and Exchange Commission. If she were to lose the cyber libel case, she would face 6 years in prison. So, to me, Ressa's victory represents not just a personal one, but one for all of free press in the Philippines. Her work in journalism has been very vital for holding the Philippine government accountable. She put her life on the line in her coverage of the EJKs, or the extrajudicial killings. She faced harassment from Duterte supporters, both online and in real life. And this is really important, especially because the Philippines ranked the 7th worst country to be in for journalists, basically. And so as we move into the next year of the new Marcos administration, journalists like her and others will be very critical in holding this new administration accountable and not abusing their power. So keep an eye on her and other journalists like her as Bongbong Marcos and his government run the Philippines.
The Philippines, right? So, medyo nabaliktad po yung mundo. But, today, facts win. Truth wins. Justice wins.
The second current event topic for today's podcast will be from the United States. A law called the Builder's Remedy looks to allow the state to move forward with affordable housing plans despite delays or resistance from cities or voters. The housing element, a new 2021 to 2029 state-mandated housing plan, regards the 191 cities in the 6-county Southern California Association of Governments region and how they must adopt plans to build a total of 1.34 million new houses by 2029, about 559,000 of which are to be affordable for low-income families. However, many cities, especially in Orange County, are struggling to push through with plans. For example, the citizens of Yorba Linda, which was the first city in Orange County to submit their plans to build new units, voted no in a landslide for a measure to rezone land to construct the planned households. In an effort to reach the mandates for new, affordable housing in Southern California, the state is looking to employ the Builder's Remedy Law to overrule cities who have failed to submit or voted no against new housing plans. This law states that developers can propose projects that disregard local zoning codes, so long as 20% of said projects are affordable to low-income people. In response to the state looking to employ this law, OC cities such as Orange and Huntington Beach are disagreeing heavily with the level of state interference in affordable housing matters. Huntington Beach, which is going as far as to try and adopt an ordinance which bans builder's remedy, is facing legal threats from the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta.
In a statement, Governor Gavin Newsom says, when Californians ask why there isn't enough housing, why the cost of renting continues to increase, or why there are so many people experiencing homelessness, I tell them to look at Huntington Beach, another city where elected officials are resorting to cheap political stunts to avoid their responsibility to build desperately needed housing.
There are many layers to this conversation that I personally find interesting. Firstly, something to note is that the cities who are showing resistance of the housing element and builder's remedy, both of which look to guarantee housing for low-income families, are of the more affluent demographic. Yorba Linda, for example, has a median household income of $137,011, and the average household income being higher at $163,100. This hints at where their interests may lie in terms of affordable housing and why so many cities are having difficulty getting their housing plans pushed through. On the other hand, there's clearly been controversy with the state using a law to try and exercise more power over the regions than the people who actually live there. But this brings into the conversation the ethics of such actions, considering that nearly 10% of Orange County's 3.2 million residents are living in poverty. Should the state government be exercising power over local governments? Or can local governments handle these matters on their own? Finally, the population of Southern California grows by the day, making the struggle for new housing only more important. However, Southern California is already such a densely populated and filled region as is, making the right decision in this case truly unclear. Overall, this matter is too complex for me to take a singular stance on, but nonetheless, it is an important subject to stay educated on, as it affects the daily lives of all SoCal residents, one way or another.
Welcome to Pare Pas Fact, where I give you a fact fast. Did you know that there are more than 16 million homes that are vacant in the US, while there are only 582,462 homeless individuals, according to the US Census?
This is Janina.
And this is Camelia.
And this is Tripa! So Tripa is a recurring segment that we have. And for each podcast that we do, there is a theme. So for this part, we will talk about 3 things that pop into our minds, whether that's 3 words, 3 people, or 3 literal things.
Wait a minute, did I hear 333? That's a sign for all my angel number girlies. You should keep listening to this segment. Anyway, that was bad, I'm sorry. But good things come in 3s, you know? You always hear that quote, so we're just gonna get into this segment now.
So Camelia, what's one thing that popped into your mind when you think of home?
I came up with a list, and I won't talk about all of them right now, but the first one I thought of is that home for me isn't like a physical attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not really connected to a place, I feel. It's more of like the people I meet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even like just my family, for example. Like, I didn't grow up living in the best like literal home, but what made it home was like my parents and like the support that they always gave me. As well, like coming to UCI, like I found home in Kaba, and I found home with like my 2 roommates. Shout out Naharika and CJ if y'all are listening. But I feel like home is so much more than physical, at least for me. It's always like the people and the relationships that I've made. How about you, Janina?
I just wanted to say that it's a good way to put it in the way you said it, just because people won't always be in their homes, and it's great to find the home aspect in other people. In that case, you're always with people who support you, like you said, and it can be family, friends, roommates. For me, it's more of the first word I thought of is Philippines. Being an immigrant, definitely, it's people say like it's like you said, it's the people who you are with. But I guess growing up there, that's what I define as home. That's where I feel comfort. Especially with my childhood, I thought it was like fun. And then I moved here, which is it's still fun. But when I say I want to go home, it's I don't think of California. I don't think of the city where I live in. I think of the Philippines, and it just feels like maybe some immigrants think the same way, and some have like your definition where their home is a different place now because they met different people. But I guess for me, it's really being there. Being there will give me that like warm feeling, and so on. How about your second?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I don't know. I think it's interesting. Like that's a very difficult point in your life to be in, to be physically away from your home and to be yearning like that place, And at least for me, because I talked about not the physical attachment, but I still think it's interesting how we differ in that way. But like just a little anecdote, like even like when I would go to the Philippines, like it's this really weird feeling, like you just feel at home, even though like I guess it wasn't like a physical attachment for me. Like I said, you feel it, It's an interesting thing. I wonder if like other people can also feel that like sense of home, just being in a place.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another thing I thought of, let's see, is I feel like for me, my home was like unconventional in a sense. Like the family dynamic, I feel like it's very like strict and like structured in society, that like home is supposed to look a certain way and like your family's supposed to look a certain way. But I feel like for me, it was always a struggle growing up because like, I don't know, my parents don't have the best relationship. Like I didn't always have the best relationship with my parents, and that's what I would associate as home. But I think growing up, like I said, it's like realizing that like even though it's unconventional, like it's still those relationships that matter to me, and like finding home like outside of just my family, but also in my friends and people I meet at Cabo, my friends in Cabo. Like home is it's an unconventional type of home, I guess.
I think what you mean, also like to add on, is that there's no one definition of home. It can mean like different things for different people. They think about different people as well, not just their families. And that's another thing I think that we're, I know you mentioned your family, but for me, that's another difference that we have, because home for me is family. I think I grew up in a very traditional, like being in the Philippines, where there's no divorce. People are kind of not forced, but like I grew up with that typical dynamic mom, dad, siblings, and I have a lot of siblings. I have 6 siblings, so I definitely think of family right away because there's so much people to think about. But yeah, so that other word is family to me. Just because I don't know, in a home that's important for myself, and I'm always surrounded by them. Like I can't have an alone time basically, just because they're always there, and we also have like in ages there it's spread apart or it's spread very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another word. What's your last word?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that, like, I don't know, I just find it so interesting that, like, right now we just shared our two, and they're kind of different from each other. Like, we kind of have a bit of contrast going on, but I think it shows, like, how different, like, the Filipino immigrant experience versus, like, the Filipino American experience can be. But also, like, despite these differences, like, we just have different definitions of home, but we at the end of the day, we prioritize like these relationships, like whether it's family or like whether it's like the people that we meet, like in Kaba, for example. Like it's like it shows how like community oriented, like I feel like Filipinos are. Like we're just always building this community, we're always uplifting each other. Like I think of like Isang Baksak and like when one rises, we all rise. When one falls, we all fall. So it's very interesting to think about. And then my last one, damn, I was like struggling a bit because like I'm trying to think, but I feel like one thing I've been struggling with recently is trying to find home within myself, but I don't want to make it seem like it's like an American individualistic thing. Like it's more so like I feel like as like a queer, like biracial, plus size woman, like I feel like society is always trying to like put me in a box and like constrict me in a way, or like I have to act a certain way always. But like I'm not able to find my voice, and I'm not able to be confident in my identity, like in who I love or just like how I present myself. So lately I've been thinking a lot about like trying to find home within myself and like trying to find comfort and confidence within myself and trying to like build up this home within myself, but also like knock down the walls that I have and like let people in as well. 'Cause like I build up a lot of walls and I always wonder why I do that, but I have to think deeper, you know, like, so I feel like home can also be like this metaphor of like, looking introspectively within myself.
That's an interesting way to put it, just because the way you put it is like home is your identity. It's like your identity of like feeling safe, acceptance within yourself, and I think it's important to have like a strong foundation of your own home to be able to be to have stable relationships and build like home with people. I guess I can relate to that with my last word, which is culture, which is also community. Because earlier you talked about home away from home, which is Kaba. And this podcast is from Kababayan at UCI, so I just want to highlight that Kababayan has been a huge part of my college journey, just because I felt so homesick migrating here, going to an American high school and then community college, and then going to a university, a 4-year university, and then finally I was able to find like a home away from home, which is Kaba. And I'm always excited that I'm with people who want to learn more about the culture, and I can share more about the culture growing up in the Philippines. So being in Kaba is like being home as well. It's one step closer to home, even if I'm like miles away. But that's all.
Yeah, I love that. So I guess to end this conversation, Kaba is home.
Yep.
And we will be moving on to the next segment. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope y'all are able to reflect on like what we thought about home and what you think of home.
Welcome back to Pare Pas Pack, where we deliver you a fact fast. Did you know that creakiness in homes is more related to temperature and humidity than age?
All right, so this will be a recurring segment that we're going to have every episode, and this is our guest segment. So we've invited a very special Kaba member guest for this episode, and we'll just be discussing some questions that we have for them in order to learn about their different experiences within this topic. And so this episode's topic is home, and we'll be talking about that now. Who's that Kababayan?
Hi everyone, my name is Eliza Acob. I am a third year transfer majoring in public health policy, and I am from the Bay Area, specifically the East Bay, in a small town called Union City.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, so we just have a few questions for you. The first one is going to be, how have you found home in college? How do you find home away from home?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I was lucky enough to get like a position at the Center of Wellness and Health Promotion very early when I transferred. So I would say that was kind of like my first home because those are like the people I see every day. And at first, it took me a while to like warm up to everyone. But I think what's really nice is that I'm so I'm so happy to see like familiar faces every day and also to interact with like all the staff members, like the interns, the other office assistants. It's all really nice. And especially like because I'm in a dual role as like a peer health educator, then I can also meet like other students. But my second home is also Kaba. At first, I was actually I wasn't sure if I was going to join because I already had like the peer health educator thing. I wanted to like, take it easy my first quarter. But then I was encouraged by my housemate to go to the first meeting. And ever since then, everything else has been like history. I've met so many people and I had so many like great memories. And I think that's why also I'm here today.
That is so cute. I love that you found home in your workplace, but also, in a campus organization. That's something we talked about in an earlier segment is Kaba is really home for a lot of people, and I love that we have created that space, and we're so happy to have you here today.
Yeah, and like Amelia said, we did mention GABA as well when we asked ourselves this like question. And also as a transfer, you know, that community is huge, right? And you get to meet so many people. And sometimes as a transfer, it's hard to meet people just because everyone has been here since their first year. And how you define home is, different from how other people define home. So our next question is, what does home mean to you?
I feel like before I transferred, home felt to me like family because those were like the people I was living with every day. So like all my brothers, my mom and my dad, just being around them and having like our little occurrences each day, whether it's my dad cooking or like my brothers watching TV, like watching the Warriors on TV. That to me felt like home. But I feel like my perspective on home has kind of like changed, especially because I transferred. Now it's gonna sound sad, but like now I have no family here because like I have no family members in like Southern California. So I feel like for me, home is wherever I can make like special bonds with, whether it's through, my line at Cabo or even like my fam at Cabo or even like all my like was it peer health educators at the wellness center. To me, that feels like home because they made me feel like I belong. And I think that's like the most important part.
Mm. Yeah, I really love that. That's something we talked about too, is like for Janina, it was, family. And I also talked about family and having that support system. And then also realizing it's like these special relationships we make, in college, like, especially as a transfer. I mean, I'm not a transfer, but I know like coming to a new space and like having this new independence is really hard. And when you don't really have your family near you or you're in a totally different space and they may not understand, you often have to reach out to like friends or, people in your workplace, people in Kaba, and I love that you're able to make these relationships. Very important. Um, all right, and then just another thing that was like coming to my mind. We talked about different spaces and like finding home in different spaces. So, like, what makes up home for you?
Okay, so for what makes up home for me, I would say I know I've been talking a lot about like my social relationships, like whether it's my family members, my friends, coworkers, housemates, etc. But I think when I think of all those things combined, I also think about laughter. I also think about love, joy that's being spread around through one another. Because every time I think of home or like what makes up home, I kind of think of kind of like a photo album, kind of where you can like look through all like the past memories and like all the nice things that we've made with the people that we consider home, or like or even places that we consider home too. Because to me, like no matter what, the Bay Area is always going to be my home, and now I'm kind of like starting this new home in Irvine.
Yeah, I think I said the same thing, especially with the place. I said home for me will always be the Philippines, but I think the difference is that um, I think it's hard for me to envision another thing as a home as opposed to the Philippines. So it just goes to show like we have differences, but I think what's a pattern is that what's important is you build that relationship with people that makes it a home. And I really like how you said like joy and laughter as one of the things, just because it's cliche, but people say laughter is medicine, but it really is in some way. It makes you closer to people, and you just enjoy the moment with them when there's like laughter.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on. I think I love laughter. I love all that joyful stuff. What I'm also hearing is like you kind of need like this sense of comfort to be in your home, like whether that's in like fulfilling your basic needs or building those relationships. And like something I talked about earlier in a previous segment, I talked about like finding this home within myself and like finding that comfort and confidence within myself. And I think that's really important for like what makes up your home.
Yeah, and sometimes when that laughter isn't around because you move to a new place, right? Sometimes you'd be feeling like homesick. So that connects to our next question, which is how does homesickness feel, and what do you do to remedy those feelings?
I feel like you guys are asking a good time because I've been homesick the past few weeks. I know Janina knows because in like Instagram, I put on my note, I was like, I'm feeling homesick. And then she's like, sending virtual hugs. Yeah. But homesick honestly feels very empty. Like that's like the best way to describe it. It's kind of like all the things that you've enjoyed or like makes you smile is kind of gone in like an instant. And it feels really lonely, which is why it's called like homesick. And I think especially between like these past few weeks, I've been really homesick because like my parents went back to the Philippines for like 2 weeks with my aunts and uncles, and I was like, oh, like I wish I could have gone. And then I think 2 weeks ago it was my brother's birthday, and then he was there with my other brother and like all our cousins. And then I was just like looking at their photos. I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to be there right now. And it's like really hard because being here, you want to be in like all those special moments that they're in. But I know I kind of just keep reminding myself, it's just like going to be 2 years. Like after 2 years, it'll be like more flexible. I'll have time to go back home and all that stuff. But I think in terms of like current remedies right now, home is really just like a phone call away. Like I tend to FaceTime my family like every now and then just to catch up on them. I know for Christmas I bought them an Alexa show. So like sometimes I drop in at our house just to see what they're doing. It's kind of stalker-ish, but like they know it's me and they know it's okay. Or like if it comes to my friends, I'm also like FaceTiming them like constantly because I know as I miss them, they really miss me too. So it goes like both ways. But if I'm not like calling them, sometimes I just distract myself by doing things I really like to do. Like you'll notice, like if you go on my Instagram, I'll be cooking up things.
Yeah.
And that's also how you'll know, like if I'm homesick, if I'm cooking up like Filipino food, that's like when I miss home because that means I miss my dad's cooking.
Aw.
But it's just another way to like bring home all the way down here.
Yeah, that I feel like that really covers how homesickness feels, and the reason why I sent like a virtual hug on Instagram is because I feel the same way all the time. Just because I migrated here and I talk about the Philippines so much, and not being home for like 5 years after I migrated, it hurts from time to time because the same thing. Like you would see those pictures, right? I missed so much, like my lola's birthday, my tito's birthdays, like graduations, reunions, and so much. And then I'm always on Facebook to see what's up. That's why it's funny how other people say that, oh, why are you using Facebook? It's for like titas or titos, like uncles and aunts. But it's one way to connect, to the family in the Philippines because you talk to them through Facebook. They post their life updates on Facebook. So yeah, that's very sad. Like not being there physically, and even time zone change is hard too because it's hard to call them. My best friends is so hard to call them. So I'm glad you have a way to remedy that through food because food is amazing, and we're talking about Filipino food too, so even more great. But yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we talked a lot about a lot of different types of homes, right? Like we talked about homesickness, we talked about, making that home away from home, whether it's in our workplace or, here in Kaba. I was just wondering, like, how do you think home is usually structured or envisioned? And then how do you think individuals combat this notion and make their own visions of home?
I feel like for me, when people envision home, they think of like their actual home, like where they grew up in. So like for example, for me in like Union City, in our like house, like surrounded by like all the parks I know, the schools I went to, all the foods I've eaten at like all those restaurants. I feel like that's how like people envision home. But I also think that home isn't always forever, you know. As much as I would like it to be, of course, like now it's like I'm over here, so I made like that big change. And then for kind of like the second part of the question, I'm like combating the notion, create their own visions of home. I would say some people do it through change. I think like I'm like a prime example of that, of just like finding a new home. Especially because I think the main reason I came here was just to like grow, right? But that also came with like the consequence of like, okay, now you have to like start over like from scratch, which isn't easy to do. But then I think what's nice is that like everyone else that like maybe you're talking to in their classes or like in clubs might be going through the same thing as well. So I think for many people, once they've like hit that change, they have to find home in like new places, whether it's like a new club or maybe like a new job, just like very new like environments where they can create their own place where they can be who they want to be. They can be with like the people they would like to be with, who can support them.
What you said about like how people usually envision home, that's me. And Camila and I talked about this already, how for me it's really like family, it's the Philippines, it's the house I grew up in. Like you said, like when you were describing the food, the restaurants, the places, I was thinking of our house in the Philippines, the streets, even like the street games we used to play in that street. And it's very nostalgic to me, and I can't envision like home in any other way. But as he said, like to combat that notion, just remember that people, it's not like linear. Like the meaning of home is not linear, and you can always create home somewhere else. And I think that's hard for me to accept because I've been with my family for my whole life. It's not the same as like like you go to a different state and study, I've been with them. So it's hard to imagine, and it's sad to imagine that someday I will move out and not be with my parents, especially when it comes to food. I cannot accept that I'm not gonna be able to taste their food, homemade meals every day. So I'm taking advantage of that as much as I can. And I imagine myself cooking it, but not the same way. That's gonna hurt.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, like, I also think of, like, the literal home, like, when you asked for, like, the definition of home, that's what I would think of, but it's a little different for me, a little harder for me, because I guess I didn't have the best literal home growing up, like, it looked very different than, like, my friends or, like, other people in my life, and so I really, like, relied on those relationships. So whether it's like my family as a support system or my friends outside of my home. And what I like about like the whole relationship thing is that they don't only like bring me comfort, but I also get to learn from them and I get to see like how they envision home. And I guess I can see how maybe they grew up very differently than I did with their literal homes, but they still rely on relationships, or maybe they grew up similarly to I did, and then we both kind of share this feeling of home with each other with our relationship. So, but yeah, I really liked this discussion that we had. I feel like hopefully whoever is listening right now, you can envision your own kind of home and learn from our experiences or relate to what we said. And yeah, thank you so much, Eliza, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
Welcome to your final Bade Fast Fact. Did you know that over 4 million in the Philippines live in homes that lack proper safety and access to clean water?
And before we conclude, we have this segment called Action Ngayon or Action Now. And with how SIPA does things, we would like to end with a reflection so you could take home something from this. And we'll also talk about resources and call to action. So for the first part of the reflection, we would like you to think about how you envision home.
Yeah, and also just know that home isn't linear or it doesn't look the same for everyone, and I feel like our discussions earlier really touched on that. As well, home is also like looking back at your roots, like this quote we always talk about, which is no history, no self, no history, no self. And then for some resources, there's tons of resource centers on campus. Some of them are like the Counseling Center, the LGBTRC, the CCC, which is the Cross Cultural Center. And I know we always pub these out, like anyone on Kaba pubs these out, but please use them. They're amazing. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Counseling Center because I personally have used it in the past. It is so easy. You don't even need UCI SHIP to use it. You can just go up on their website. I'm pretty sure it's just like counseling.uci.edu. And you can set up an appointment for either short-term or long-term therapy. They even have group sessions, and it's really great. Yeah, so that's the Counseling Center. And then now I'm going to talk about the LGBT Resource Center. I believe they're located on the 3rd floor of the Student Center, and you can always drop by. They have snacks in there. They have a library of LGBT books that you can check out. They also have tons of events throughout the week. I know they have one about coming out. They also have like a BIPOC night for Black, Indigenous people of color. So if that interests you, like, please check it out.
The LGBTRC has a cool space as well. They have like a microwave and a refrigerator, and you could just stay there and chill. And they also provide snacks, cantrons, feminine products, and so on. The next resource center is a cross cultural center, and Kaba people use this a lot. This is where we hold our general meetings at the Dr. White, and there are other events in the ring room from other cultural organizations on campus. And for at least for Cabo, you don't have to be Filipino to join, and that's the same with other cultural organizations.
Yeah, and what I really like about the CCC is that it was made by students for students. So please use it. Janina and I always like going there to just to study. So maybe we'll see you there.
Yeah, CCG is cool. And another is, like we said, from the 3 plus segment, home has to fulfill your needs, your personal needs. So just like your nutrition, right? Your food. So another resource is the Basic Needs Hub, because they provide emergency meal swipes, food, snacks. So that's definitely one of the things that you can maximize or use as a resource. Just because also recently they expanded just to fulfill the needs of the students, because majority, or there's a lot of us who get hungry on a daily basis, and they're there for a reason.
Yeah, and the Basic Needs Hub, they have so many different services. They also help you out with your CalFresh application if you're looking to apply for that. They have emergency meal swipes, like Janina mentioned. As well, they have a pantry, and you can go in, set up an appointment. All of their information is on their website, basicneeds.uci.edu, and they have all kinds of stuff as well, not even just resources for food, but also just housing resources. So I definitely recommend utilizing this resource, especially since they just expanded. That's really cool. All right, so just to end it off, like I said, I know we always put these out in the Kababayan space, but please use them as well. Take the time to reflect on those, on what we've discussed today, and as well the prompts that we kind of gave you. Congrats, you made it to the end. This is the end of the podcast, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening, and I hope that you're able to reflect on everything we talked about with home. As well, I just wanted to pub out a final thing. If you have any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, please send it to tinyurl.com/SEPA feedback form, and we'll be checking that.
And as for me, once again, thank you so much for everyone who participated. This is one of our goals as SEPA to have this podcast, and it's great to be able to do this with our interns, Tyler and Basilio, as well as Natasha for helping us edit this podcast, and for the setup as well, and also for Eliza for being willing to take time out of her day to help us with the guest segment and be here with us today. And also Michael for doing this with me. So thank you once again, and stay tuned for our next podcast.
I'll see you guys later.
Signing off for now. I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
I'll see you again. Kita kita kits, utro. Bye-bye.